it is time for Be Or You Can Be. And we have none other than Aisha and Hawa, who will be talking to us about eliminating the stigma attached to mental health. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
It is lovely to have you here. Girl power, love it, love it, love it. How's your morning going so far?
Great.
Yeah,
Excited about the topic.
definitely mental health is quite a big deal. So I'm handing it over to you.
Okay, so we're putting Hawa on the spot.
Oh
Okay, I'm not, but I just want to ask you, why do you think there's so much stigma around mental health?
Question of days. Gosh, it's something to really think about, because you begin to wonder, like, the people who stigmatize don't really know a lot about it.
Exactly.
So I think it's ignorance, pretty much, I think what people don't understand, they just naturally reject, So I guess that's what's happening with mental health. You don't understand it, it doesn't seem familiar, so yeah, I don't know it, so it has to be wrong. And then, of course, coupled with the fact that we've had generations of misinformed narrative about mental health, that is people from your village, or it's that you are lazy, or they possessed you, or you're one of the demons that Jesus was casting out in those days, things like that. So, so I guess just a combination of all of that have really set a lot of people back in terms of understanding or empathizing with the topic of mental health. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. Talking about village people and evildoers when it comes to mental health seems to be what is particular in Nigeria as a country. Because when you talk about, oh, I'm depressed, like I had a friend that was suffering from anxiety, and the first thing her mom said when she told her is, you cannot suffer from anxiety in Jesus' name. My Lord will never accept it. And I'm like, we need to start having conversations like this, because if we're not educated about it, people will not really know how to address it, and they will not be comfortable about talking about it.
absolutely.
Which brings me to the two types of stigma when it comes to mental health. There's societal one and the self-stigma. So I want you to touch a bit about both. Tell us how, for self-stigma, if you are currently suffering from a mental illness, how can you not stigmatize yourself? How can you be comfortable with it? Like, yes, there's something wrong with me, but it's not the end of the world. There's something that could be done if I get help.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, if we tell people, I mean, we're all part of a population, right? And this population, there are ignorant people, and all of us have been subjected to this misinformed narrative. So if we're being very honest, it's going to be hard to just say, okay, because you have mental illness, don't stigmatize yourself, because the narrative is the same across board, right? So I think first it's understanding that everybody's a part of the population. So it's hard for you to tell somebody who has a mental illness. Somebody has heard this narrative for a long time, so it has influenced the way you do things. It's become a prejudice that you act out even subconsciously. So now that they say that you're part of it, it's like, but self-stigma, I think what we need to do generally is, for such people, is to tell new stories. We need to tell new stories about it, because that's the only way, because this is a subconscious thing. You need to address it in a subconscious way. So that you need to tell new stories so that people can begin to connect with, that story or that person or, the journey, and they'll be like, okay, maybe it's not that bad, or maybe, if she's going through it, then maybe it's not something I really about my village people and things like that. So I think it's a bit of a stretch to just tell people to not like self-stigmatize and all. It's not very easy because they're part of the population. I would just say that as a community, we have the honest to tell fresh stories, new perspectives about mental health, so that generally people who are living with it can become more comfortable in doing it. I think it takes a certain level of awareness, resilience, and just your own self, maybe research or something, for you to get to a point where you say on your own, I'm not going to stigmatize myself. This is what it is. It is, an illness like any other illness, perhaps, and all of that. So I think that's about the best that I know that anyone can do.
I like that you said it's an illness like any other illness, because when it comes to physical illness like malaria, typhoid, people are always so open to talk about it, but when it comes to mental illnesses, they tend to shy away from it. Simi, would you like to share something about self-stigma?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So I feel, especially in a country like Nigeria, where people don't take, mental health as seriously, A lot of people feel that they're alone. A lot of people feel they're isolated. A lot of people sometimes don't even understand what they're going through. And the funny thing is, there are actually helplines out there, but I don't think they're publicized a lot. So this issue of stigma, I mean, it comes from all around. You get, like you said, a lot of people saying, oh no, it is juju, it's so on and so forth that is attacking you. A lot of people say black people don't suffer from. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Black people don't suffer from mental illness.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's white man's illness.
Exactly. But the thing is, a lot of people need to realize that mental illness is perfectly normal. A lot of people suffer from it, but it is something you can overcome if you go through the right ways of overcoming it. You need to start talking about it to people, if you know what I mean. I, at one point in my life, suffered from depression, and depression is very common. I suffered from depression at a really, really young age, and I remember, talking to my parents about it, and they didn't really understand. They didn't really know how to address it. They were just like, go and pray. And it took me a while to actually want to come out of this depression, because the funny thing about a lot of mental illnesses is that it's weird. I mean, you're unhappy being unhappy, but you find this sort of comfort in your misery. And it's hard to tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to pull myself out of this. Most of the time you just sort of settle down in it. So I think, unfortunately, I didn't have a large, a strong support system around me, but because I was able to go through it, and because I'm fine, I haven't been depressed in years now. I mean, there have been people who come to me, who talk to me, and tell me about their problems, and I understand what they're going through, and it helps me help. Well, I'm able to help them.
Yeah,
because you went through it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about stigma can lead to harassment, bullying, violence, and it also prevents people that are going through certain mental illnesses to get help.
Yeah.
So how can we communicate with people that are going through mental illnesses that it's not the end of the world? What can we do? How can we eliminate this stigma, basically?
So I mean, I would usually use an analogy of the fact that stigma comes from a place of an incomplete story, which is pretty much what it is. With anything that has large ignorance base, or something that is largely miscommunicated, or something that is misinformed, or a topic that is misinformed, I think a lot of people have not heard the complete story. So I had a friend who would say, like, they would say maybe Aisha had depression, and then they'd say Aisha shot her mother, and then somebody would join the two statements and say Aisha had depression, so she shot her mother. Two independent truths, but they've been connected together, and then it kind of distorts the narrative. It was not because Aisha had depression that she shot her mother. Do you understand?
Yeah.
There are two independent. Did she have depression? Yes. Did she shoot her mother? Yes. But is it because of that you connect it? So I think for me, and what I do is about the narrative. You need to understand that depression can happen to someone who has a very fantastic job, or someone who's in a good relationship, or a man, because it's so imbalanced that part of the society would think, oh, maybe it's women, they're always looking for it's them, and then there are men out there suffering as well. Or they say, oh, maybe children, and we'll be like, no, actually, over 60-70% of mental illnesses are formed before the age of 15. Yes. So it's like, how do we begin to tell different angles of this story so that it becomes simpler for people to take in?
Exactly.
People can connect with the people, so it's kind of like humanizing it rather than just giving people maybe statistics, and they'll say, yeah, okay. But when you begin to show faces to it, you begin to put real life experiences and stories to it, people are able to empathize, because they now realize that, oh, that could be my mother, or my sister, or my girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. So for me, for one, I think the narrative is so important on so many levels. With anything you're going to do to destigmatize the issue of mental health, or the topic of mental health, you need to start by changing the narrative.
Yes. So changing the narrative. Also, I think educating ourselves is very, very important. I don't think you need to wait for anybody to come and start telling you about mental health, because it's something that is very, very prevalent right now in our society. So everybody, do something today. Go to your Google search and search mental health problems, symptoms. How can you help the people around you? Because you don't know. The thing about this disease is that nobody really knows who's suffering from it. Because I can be depressed right now, and I'm so happy because I don't want people to judge me or people to be like, she's looking for attention or something like that. So you need to be aware of your environment, people that are suffering from a mental illness. It can be depression, it can be anxiety, it can be bipolar disorder, it can be anything generally.
I think something else that is very important to add is that I think one of the issues that we're having regarding stigma and mental health is that when people think of mental health, they automatically think of mental illness.
Exactly.
So they don't think of mental wellness or, you know, stressors in life and things like that. Like that is before it gets to a mental illness. So people don't see what's in between. So it's like, oh, I don't have that. So, I mean, I'm not connected with that issue. Don't worry about it. Like, don't worry. Take it to somebody else who has maybe depression. Because I'll get people who send me mails or DMs and they'll be like, oh, I don't have depression. I don't have depression, sure. I'm not really connected with your organization, but I like what you do. And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay. So we need to also let people understand that there's a spectrum to this. So when we talk about mental health, we're not automatically always talking about mental illness.
Yes.
So we're talking about mental wellness, we're talking about sleep, we're talking about work, we're talking about stress, self-care. We're talking about, you know, you went through a bad relationship or a divorce or you lost a parent at an early age. Anything that could in any way distort or, you know, disturb your everyday life or your behavior, your thoughts, your emotions, you know, just generally, because everybody goes through a hard time, right? You know, so I think it's very important that we begin to look at mental health in terms of mental wellness as well. Not just, oh, I haven't broken down. Somebody told me it's not that bad yet, and I'm like, oh, wow, how bad do we want it to get first? You know, so I think, yeah, that's super important. And, you know, you talked about educating ourselves. I think something that's really important as well, and where you see a trend that's happening in the world now is, or at least particularly in US, is that they're passing laws as to mental health education in schools, which I think is very, very, very profound for a lot of us, because that's where we kind of cultivated all that we thought was normal. That norm, like, so once you get to that stage, you begin to realize this is not normal, this is not normal, or this is normal, this is what normal people do. Whatever normal means, anyway. I still don't get normal. I still don't get what normal is, but yeah.
I don't think there is a real definition for
normal.
Yes. I think if at all, it's probably a range of something that's generally acceptable. You know, a range, because I don't know that everybody's normal at one point that is normal. You know, so I think that would be very, very interesting to see that in Nigeria as well. Just seeing us begin to incorporate mental health education into like maybe secondary school curriculums and things like that. I think it will significantly change how we look at mental health in another 5 years or, you know, 7 years or something.
Yeah, I think what you said is very important. When we talk about mental health, people jump into mental illness. Meanwhile, everyone has a mental health, because your mental health consists of your emotional, psychological, and physical well-being. So everybody has a mental health. You don't need to fall into that mental illness category before you start getting yourself aware and knowing about it.
Yeah,
so I think what you said is very interesting.
It's very interesting.
Also, the fact that schools, sorry.
No problem.
I think a lot of schools now are getting more aware about it.
Right, but they had to wait until there were a couple of suicide cases or kids abusing substances and things like that. I think we need to learn to be a lot more proactive about things like this. I mean,
I think better now than never.
Well, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And you know, one thing that really upsets me and really shocks me, and especially why we need education in Nigeria, is that you read on all these blogs different stories about people who are trying to commit suicide or people who are about to jump off from the bridge. And then you see the comments and people saying,
jump now, you're the only one, weak people, they're ungrateful.
Exactly, and I'm thinking, how cruel can you be that obviously this person must be going through something so strong that he wants to take his own life. Then instead of you to say, you need help, or let's support you. We have this mentality of sort of bringing others down, and it needs to be addressed and it needs to be corrected. We're going to go on a quick break, but don't go anywhere, because we still have Hawa and Aisha who will be talking to us about the stigma of mental health. Stay with us. to us about eliminate must be going through something so strong that he wants this person. Then instead of you to say to take his own life, you let me
support you.
We have this mentality of sort of bringing others down, and it needs to be addressed and it needs to be corrected. Alright, we're going to go on a quick break, but don't go anywhere. And Aisha, who will be talking to us about this, because we still have HAUAWU. Can you be that obviously must be going through something so strong that he wants to us about eliminate to take his own life. Then instead of you to say, we have this mentality, let me support obviously this person, it needs to be addressed, and others down. And we're going to go on and it needs to be corrected. Quick break, but don't go anywhere. And Aisha, who will be talking to us about this, of sort of bringing The Beat 99.9 FM, the heartbeat of Lagos. I'm Simi Dre, and this is the Saturday Morning Cruise. We still have HAUAWU and Aisha in the studio, and they are talking about eliminating the stigma attached to mental illness.
Yeah, so right before we left, Simi brought up the judgmental society that we found ourselves in, and it's just very, very sad to see that someone wants to commit suicide. And the next thing people are saying is, you want to leave us in this Nigeria alone? Never. And I'm like, I don't understand. How can we help people to understand that being judgmental actually triggers people to go and commit suicide or do more things that are harmful to themselves?
How do we begin to address that? I think it's also a factor of a larger problem. You know, so in my head I've been thinking for quite a couple of months now, how do we address, how can we teach people empathy? It's something that we can teach people, you know, because once that is sorted, then every other thing kind of falls in place. Even if something is unfamiliar to you, you're still able to empathize. You don't need to understand it, but you're able to say that you say it is rough, and I believe that it's rough. You know, getting people to that point, and I think again it's education. But what I would say, and I had this conversation with somebody a couple of months ago regarding social media and the comments and all the toxic stuff that goes on there. And she was like, you know, I do believe that a lot of people who come out with all of these nasty comments are actually going through something as well.
Yeah,
but they don't know how to express it. Yes, so they're expressing it by also lashing out at other people online, and you know, just kind of projecting their own problems on, you know, and I mean, they're doing it, but they're also bullying people, you know, on social media and things like that. So I think again, you know, just trying to address that issue of, you know, of all the toxic, you know, things going on social media, or this judgmental society we have, is just people thinking that, you know, I have it put together, why can't you? Or what could it be that you're going through that would make you want to fall apart? Like, so we always have that culture of comparison, that culture of, you know, I mean, this is what everybody is doing, so you better get on board, you know. So, I mean, at the time when I was breaking down as well, you know, it was very hard to tell people that, look, I'm having issues. I don't know, like, I feel like these are everyday issues, but I don't know why I'm struggling with them. And I'll hear people say things like, you know, everybody goes through it, you know. I mean, isn't all this Lagos traffic? Are you the first? Will be the first person to walk on the island and you're living on the mainland, you know. But it was affecting me in a way that was different from every other person. But just because everybody felt like, you know what I mean, it's a normal thing. If you're going to get a good job, you have to endure it. People are coming from away. You are just coming from Ikeja. You know, it's like, I don't have a right to feel what I'm feeling because perhaps there's somebody feeling worse. No, we can all be feeling whatever we're feeling, and we're all justified for that without having to compare on a scale, because there's really no scale. Everybody has a different threshold for pain, for stress, you know, for life generally. So understanding that not everybody has that doesn't make anyone stronger or weaker. It just makes your predisposition different.
Yeah. I'm happy that you touched on that, because this Nigeria is it's very hard when it comes to mental health. But I'm happy that there are a lot of support groups like HAUAWU has She Writes Woman, there's Baggins, there's Money, there are a lot of places, so you really don't have an excuse. There are people that are doing things to make mental health more aware now and to eliminate the stigma basically. But before we leave, I want to talk about the stigma attached to the professionals. You know, that's another level of stigma.
I know.
People say, what? You have a shrink? You have a therapist? You have a life coach? And I'm like, what is so bad in that? Like, how do we encourage people that it's okay? You don't even need to have a problem before you have somebody that you're talking to help to guide you through achieving your goals and living a purposeful life. So how do we eliminate the stigma attached to professionals as well?
Oh, wow, that one is hard. It's the same stigma. I usually say it's stigma by association, and it comes in different forms. So it is the same kind of stigma that comes out of, you know, if you have a sister that, you know, goes public to say, oh, I've had maybe schizophrenia or something, and then you, the sister, people start treating you differently because your sister, you know, it's like, so that's why you see a lot of family members will be like, I beg you, don't air your dirty laundry in public, or just keep it inside, you know, things like that. Yeah, so I think that's also the same thing regarding, you know, professionals as well. I mean, on the side of the professionals, I remember the first, you know, psychiatrist on our team. She said, you know, like her friends wouldn't come to the hospital to come and say hi to her or just have lunch. You know, they used to do that a lot, you know, go to each other's offices and just chill. And they won't come to say, I know, for somebody who think that maybe I'm mad, you know. So I entered the psychiatric hospital, so she couldn't do that. Now, on the other side of people who are accessing help, recently I had a very intense conversation with a friend about, you know, seeking help regarding some issues. And, you know, she made a statement and said, am I that broken that I need to see a therapist? And I'm like, no, you don't have to be broken, and you don't have to be that broken, whatever that means. You know, we need to understand that it's okay, just the same way you will see a professional for your physical wellness. So the way you see maybe a physiotherapist, or the way you go and see a GP, or the way you go and see, like, you know, just different medical professionals. Exactly. So that's the same way you can go and see somebody if maybe you had a divorce and it's not really, you know, going well for you, or maybe you had a breakdown, or your mind isn't quite right. And it's kind of ironic because the mind being, or the brain being, like one of the most important, or the most important organ in the body, and you don't seek help for that, but you're seeking help for these other parts of the body, and you think that's okay. So I don't know, we kind of place it very differently, and it's a mindset issue. So I think just changing the way we look at, you know, therapists or life coaches or psychologists and all of that, making them a part of our everyday well-being. Yeah. So usually I'll tell people, like, okay, if you're going to see, maybe you're going to do your yearly checkup or something, you know, people do that a lot in Nigeria. So I'm flying abroad to go and do my checkup, or, you know, I just want to take leave from work to go and do my complete body checkup or anything. And I'm like, just put in a mental health checkup as well. We need to begin to make it seem like a normal thing that you do routinely, or, you know, because if you make it seem like it's something that happens only when things are bad, then people are only going to associate it when things are bad. And nobody wants to admit that anything is so bad about, no, it's not that bad though, you know. So we need to make it something that is so routine, something that is so basic, so that people can begin to imbibe it. So I think that's an approach.
And the funny thing is, I like how you said that people focus on their physical health, but a lot of people don't realize that sometimes your mental health can affect your physical health as well. They go hand in hand. So if you're checking one, check the other as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
One of my dreams for Nigeria is for us to be able to walk into a wellness center, just like you walk in to ask about makeup products, right? Like a MAC store or a... I don't know, give an example.
I don't know makeup.
Like a Lancome store, be able to walk in and ask about the professionals that are available, make bookings and stuff like that. But it seems like we need extra work. We're going to have to put in extra work. And it starts with everyone, basically. Use your voice. You don't have to be going through something to use your voice. Start talking about mental health. Let's start talking about it, because there's no help without mental health.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, I'm here, I'm a presenter at the Beats 99.9 FM, and I said I suffer from depression. Then it's not a big deal.
Exactly. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, yes.
Yeah.
Any other...
really, nothing. I would just say that a lot more people need to, like Simi said, you know, tell their stories, you know, and look at, I mean, I'm just an everyday girl, do you understand? That kind of feel like, okay, I work at Peter Firm, I'm going about my everyday life, even though I suffered from depression and all, it didn't have to take my life, or, you know, I was still able to do the right things and combat it and just continue going on with my life. We need to put in such stories, you know, and it's the reason why people tell me, like, my mother was like, can't you get tired of telling your story? I'm like, no, because there's still stigma. So as long as there's stigma, then these
need to
stories are
continue
very,
saying
very
these
important
stories.
because there are millions of more people who do not know these stories, who still feel like their own issues are so unique and distinct. And yes, everybody's issues are unique, but you need to realize that you're not alone in it. There are other people who have gone through it as well, and there are people who are trying to humanize it by putting their faces out. I'm not saying everybody can do that because it comes with its own consequences sometimes, depending on the stage you are in life. I know, but it is important that if you can, you put your face and your story out for people so that it becomes more relatable and people can connect with it more and empathize generally with people who live with some form of mental health challenge. Yeah.
I agree with you. And to end this, I'd like to thank Mr. Larry Lushala, who is starting a campaign to end stigma around mental health called the Dose of Dose. Your 4 happy hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endomorphins, which is starting on August 1st. So use the hashtag Dose of Dose and end the stigma. And also he's giving a free coaching for life and success, relationship, sex and marriage, finance and career, and emotion and stress. But you have to log on to www.coachme.lifezone. The zone is xone.org. And to end this, I'd like to hear the last few words from everyone. Simi, we start.
Okay, so my last words are, if you are going through any sort of mental illness, whether it is depression, whether you're suffering your bipolar, so on and so forth, number 1, there's nothing wrong with it. Number 2, you can fix it. There is a way to get out of it. You can overcome it, but please go and see, the right professionals. I urge you to don't do anything drastic like taking your life. It is definitely, everybody has the power and the strength to overcome these things, but sometimes they just need that extra help and support system to help them realize the strength they have to pull them out of it.
Well said, Hawa.
I think we've said so much. I would say empathize. I think we need to now begin to tell people to be deliberate about their empathy, not rushing into judgment and just being able to say, I don't know this, I've never heard of it before, but if you say it's an issue, then okay,
we need to learn
I'm ready to learn and listen and, just try to accept you just the way you are. I think a lot more people need acceptance than we really think. I think a lot of the issues that we have in society are because some people don't feel accepted or included, or they feel like their struggles are not valid. So it's important to know that your struggles are valid. There are people who seek to accept you and validate you, and that, like Simi said, it's important that whatever it is that you're going through, you seek the right help. And I like to stress that it's important that you don't wait till you have a mental breakdown. Exactly. Before you seek help. If you even think that there might be something wrong with you, I think that's the perfect time to get help. Yeah. So if you're at the point where you're asking yourself, I'm not sure when I should get help, or if I should get help for this issue, that's the exact time you should get help.
For me, I'll just say let's educate ourselves, because knowledge is power. Regardless of if you are going through something or not, you have a mental health and it can be severe if it's not properly taken care of. So let's educate ourselves and let's not be judgmental, guys. Don't be that person that's under Instablog Ninja saying, why you go and kill yourself. Let's be more, like Hawa said, let's have more empathy and show support and be aware of our behaviors and attitudes, because you don't know what someone is going through. Don't be judgmental. It could be you tomorrow, it could be your family member, it could be someone you care about.
I think putting that in perspective can be very powerful. Just saying, what if this were my sister? Or this was my wife?
My mom,
will I talk the same way? Will I act the same way?
Will I want somebody to talk the same way?
Exactly. So,
and also, if you're currently going through a mental illness, it's not the end of the world. You can get help. There is HAUAWU, there's She Writes Woman, there's Baggy, there's OLCA, there's Pinnacles Medical Services. There are a lot of professionals out there, and it's not the end of getting diagnosed with a mental illness is not a life sentence. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Simi has said, look at her now. She's Princess of Beat FM. And so let's just be more conscious of how we treat people as well, because it's very, very important. You don't know, you smiling at someone can make their day and do something good to them, and you saying something bad, like you're not the first to go through it, can worsen their situation. So let's be deliberate with the things we say and how we act around people.